I couldn't find a zombie guy that didn't require a ton of sewing, so I created one. Let's make it together. Hey, it's Tammy, Crafty Mompreneur. If you're new, welcome. If you're not, welcome back. Today, I am sharing with you a tutorial on how to make this little zombie guy. For my Crochet from A to Z challenge, I freehanded this using Bernat Blanket yarn for the letter Z. And I did not write the pattern down. I just kind of grabbed some yarn and made it. When I showed that, people loved it. I decided to go ahead and create a tutorial for it. I will have a PDF pattern available on my site, so if you would prefer a PDF, you can get that. I have made it out of a couple different types of yarn. The yarn I'm going to be using today is Knotty Ball, and this is what it looks like. The size is just a little bit bigger than my hand. Of course, when you make the same pattern with Bernat Blanket yarn, it's going to be a lot bigger. And then I also decided to make it in Parfait Chunky. I didn't have a very good selection of yarn colors in Parfait Chunky, but I wanted to just see how it worked up. And this is the size difference on what it would look like in Parfait Chunky. I am liking the Knotty Ball, like posh style yarn lately, so that is what we're going to be using. And so let's go ahead and get started. So for this tutorial, you're going to need a royal blue, a light blue, 2 shades of green, and some black yarn. And for the Bernat Blanket, I used, I think it's called leafy green or something. It's like a variegated green that they have. And this was just some random yarn. When you have Parfait Chunky, like, you just use what you got, you know. This is using just a light blue. It's not exactly the same shade of blue as that, but you know, I think you get the idea that any light blue, dark blue combination will work. Then of course you're going to need a crochet hook, and for Knotty Ball yarn, I like to use a 5mm hook, and my favorite type of hook is of course the clover hooks. You're also going to need stitch markers. I don't normally use stitch markers, but for this particular pattern, and because we're trying to make some corners, I am using stitch markers in this video. And then a yarn needle, you'll need a yarn, and then of course some scissors and some polyfill. And I think with that, we're ready to get started. We're going to start by making the arms, and then we're going to work from the legs up to the top of the head. So the only sewing that's going to be required on this is to sew the arms to the body. So you're going to grab your light green yarn and put 8 single crochets into a magic ring. Go ahead and do that now. The way I do my magic ring is I pull the yarn around my 3 fingers, I cross it in the back, hold the yarn with my thumb, and then have this set up here. And then I go under this first yarn, pull the yarn under that, twist it like that, and then I pull the yarn through the loop. Then of course I need to straighten out my yarn tail, and this is how I set up my magic ring. You always want to make sure that your yarn tail is pulling the opposite side of the ring. And then go ahead and put in 8 single crochets. There are 8 single crochets, and then you're going to want to go ahead and pull that magic ring closed. Okay. Okay, to mark up my rounds, I do like to use a piece of yarn rather than a stitch marker. We're going to be using the stitch markers later on in the tutorial. Okay, so for round 2, we are going to be working in the back loops of round 1. Now, if you look at your stitches, see, sometimes this first one is hiding. If you see it right there, if you pull your magic ring too tight, sometimes that first stitch can get hidden down in there, and a lot of times I'll just add an extra stitch and let it hide. But for the sake of this tutorial, I'm just going to dig out my stitch. Okay, so there's my first stitch right there. Now in that back loop, we are going to put in a single crochet in that first one, And then in that second one, we're going to put a half double crochet. Okay, and then we're going to repeat that 3 more times. So single crochet into the back loop, half double crochet into that corner, and this is what's kind of making our corners. Okay, and then we're going to put another single crochet. And I like to pull the yarn a little bit tight right there, and then half double into the corner. And then one more time, single crochet into the back loop, half double. And now we're back at the end of round 2. Okay, and so you'll see where we put those half doubles, it's kind of forming a little bit of like a square. That's what we're going for. Now for rounds 3, 4, and 5, we are going to just be single crocheting around 8 times through both loops. Okay, so here's our first stitch. I'm going to go ahead and move that. First stitch is right here. We're going through both loops now. There's 1 single crochet, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Okay, this is what we're looking like. Now we're going to go 2 more times, 2 more rounds. This is going to be round 4 of single crochet all the way around. Okay, and now we have 1 more for round 5. Okay, we've reached the end of round 5. We are now ready to change our color to light blue. I like to just go ahead and snip off that. Grab your light blue. And to change the color, this is how I like to do it. We're just going to take your unfinished last stitch of the previous round, put your light blue yarn over your hook, and then pull it through. So now you're now ready to start the next round with that new color. All right, so for this light blue, we're going to go ahead and single crochet all the way around for round 6. Once I finish that round, I like to go ahead and tie these 2 pieces together. So you gotta make sure that you don't get the, see, like this one is for the bottom one, for that magic ring, and I just like to make sure that's pulled tight, and then I'll snip that off a little bit, stuff that back in. And then this one is where I changed the color, and then I just like to tie that together with the previous round. So tie these 2 together after we finish that first round of blue. And then those can be stuffed on in there. Okay, and this is what your arm should be looking like. Okay, we are now on round 7, and we're going to single crochet around again in the light blue. So single crochet 8 around. And at this point, I like to add a little bit of stuffing. And you just want to stuff it lightly. You don't need to stuff it too much, but just stuff this lightly. And as I'm stuffing, I kind of just like to shape it into kind of a boxy shape. You can kind of see with those half double crochets that it kind of gives it that boxy look. There just was not a good way that I found to do a really good small little box. You'll see when we do the legs, we do it a little bit differently. So this is just how I came up with to do kind of a little boxy little arm with those half doubles in the corners. Okay, so that should be stuffed good enough. Now what we want to do for round 8, this is where I need to kind of for you to identify where those half doubles are, because depending on your tension, you might need to adjust where your half doubles are for this next round, for round 8. But we're basically going to be doing a single crochet or half double crochets in this round. And you want your half double crochets to line up. So for this one, my half doubles right there, and you can use stitch markers to mark them if you can't find your stitches, or if you're using like blanket yarn, use a you can use a stitch marker to mark where that half double is. But I can see where they are, like my half doubles right there, so I'm good to start with a half double crochet right there. So I'm going to start with a half double, and then I'm going to go single. And then there's my other half double, so I'm going to put a half double there, and then a single, another half double, and then a single, and then one more half double, and then a single. And that's round 8. So now, as you can see, that's kind of giving the look of the squarish shape that we want for our little zombie guy's arms. Okay. Okay, now it's time to close up this hole. So what you want to do here is you can go ahead and remove whatever stitch marker you have and finish stuffing this. And then go ahead and fasten this off into the back loop of the next stitch. So fasten off into the back loop, and then just give yourself a little bit of yarn to close up the hole. Okay, so what we're going to do is, now that it's fastened off in that back loop, we're going to close up the hole using the back loops, if that makes sense. So what you're going to do is, you've already went into that, you've closed off, or you fastened off into that back loop. So now what we're going to do is go into the next 2 back loops and pull through, the next 2 back loops and pull through, the next 2 back loops and pull through. And there should be one more, I think. We'll just, it should be okay. This is just to close it off so it's kind of flat. All right, so that's what it should look like. It's as flat as I could get it when I was designing this little pattern. And then you can just close it off, tie a knot, whatever. And then what I like to do is come out the top side where your color changes, and just come out right about there, because this is where we're going to be attaching it to the zombie. So that is how you make the arm. And now I need you to go ahead and just repeat steps 1 through 9 and create another arm just like this. Okay, you should have both of your little arms ready to go. And you know, just kind of shape them like into, like, flatten the edges just to give them more kind of a square shape. But they should, this is how they should look. Okay, we are now going to move on to working on the body from the legs up. So we're going to start by creating our 2 legs, and we're going to be starting off with the royal or darker blue that you have. Okay, for leg number 1, we're going to start off with 8 single crochets into the magic ring. Okay, go ahead ahead and pull your magic ring closed. Wouldn't pull your magic ring too tight so you can find that first stitch. Okay, for round 2, we are going to be going in a pattern of a single crochet and then 3 single crochets into the next stitch. So here's what it looks like. So single crochet, let me make sure that I don't need that. 1, 2, hold on, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8. Okay, so we're going to single crochet into this first stitch, and then we're going to put 3 single crochets into the next stitch. So here's 1, 2, 3. And now here's where I'm going to need you to grab a stitch marker and mark the center stitch of that set of 3. Okay, so you're going to put a stitch marker in there, and then you're going to repeat that again and go single crochet, and then 3 single crochets into the next one. 1, 2, 3, and again mark your middle stitch of the set of 3, and you're going to repeat that again, single crochet, and then 3 single crochets, 1, 2, 3, and then mark the second stitch of the set of 3, and you're going to repeat that one more time, single crochet, and then 3 single crochets into this stitch, 1, 2, oops, 3, and then mark that middle stitch of the set of 3. Now what those are is that's the corners of your squares of the bottom of the feet. That's where their stitch markers are. Okay, and we're going to leave those there throughout pretty much the rest of the time making the zombie. So I know it can be kind of cumbersome to have those stitch markers on there, but when we get to this top section, it's going to be a lot easier to mark where we're at and where those corners are. Because of everybody's tension being different, it's just what I found the easiest way is to just leave those stitch markers in, and when we get to the point of lining these guys up, it'll work out so much easier. So trust the process here. All right, let's go ahead and tighten down our magic ring and move on to round 3. In round 3, we're going to be going into the back loops of that stitch and single crocheting all the way around. So find your back loops. That first one's sometimes hard to find. Single crochet. In the ones with the stitch marker, just kind of move it to the side, find the back loop, put your stitch in, and then just move it to the other side and keep going. But just really try and leave your stitch marker in there. It will help later on, I promise. Okay, so this is what your rounds 1 through 3 should look like. I'm going to go ahead and snip this off a little bit. For rounds 4, 5, 6, and 7, we are just going to single crochet all the way around in both loops. So single crochet all the way around. You should have 16 stitches. I'm going to fast forward through this section, and I will meet you back here after you've done rounds 4, 5, 6, and 7 with 16 single crochets in each round. Okay, just finished round 7. This is what your leg should look like, and we are going to go ahead and just fasten off this first leg and leave a little bit of a yarn tail for sewing the 2 legs together in between the body. So go ahead and just leave this leg like this and repeat steps 1 through 7, but do not fasten off for leg number 2. And then I'll meet you back here after you're done with leg number 2. But remember, you should have 2 legs. One is still attached to your yarn, the other one is fastened off. So for the one that's fastened off, we're going to be joining them together now, and you'll want the one that is fastened off in your left hand and your one on the right, the one with the working yarn still attached. Now, what you want to do is you want to make sure that your squares are like squared off flat, so that when you're looking at, the legs, the straight sides are to the front of the zombie, okay? What you don't want is like your point of your leg to be facing forward, if that makes sense. So the backs of your legs are both facing towards you, if that makes sense. Okay, and then what you're going to do is you're going to chain one, and then you're going to want to go to the stitch directly above where this stitch marker is, and then insert your hook. Okay, and then single crochet right there. Now that should create a straight line across where you need to be. Okay, having that extra chain in there is going to help us to keep our legs so that they're straight and they don't get turned this way, because what you don't want to have like the corner of your foot facing the wrong direction. You want them flat. Okay, so just make sure that your stitch markers are both lined up in a straight line. Okay, now what we're going to be doing is crocheting all the way around. This is your yarn tail from the other one, sorry. Okay, we're going to be crocheting around foot number, the first foot we created. Okay, so we got 1 stitch, and then we're going to go ahead and single crochet all the way around. There's 1. So there's actually 2 stitches in there now. So there's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Once we get to about 6, just double check and make sure that you're still straight. And then 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, and now we're to this other stitch marker. Okay, and now here's where we want to chain 1, and we're going to go directly across to right above where this stitch marker is. Okay, to this corner, which is right there. Now we should line up pretty straight. Let me see. And then we're going to single crochet all the way around this leg. Now, before I move on to round 9, I like to just make sure that we are squared off. Like when you hold your legs like this, they're squared off, everything lines up when you sit them down. And it looks like we did good this time. I can't tell you how many times I had to change this and make it to where it would work. Okay, as long as you are happy with the placement of those legs, we're going to go ahead and sew up the hole between the legs closed, and we're going to use the leftover yarn from the first leg to close this up. I have 26 stitches around here, and that's kind of the idea, is if you have is to have 26 around. So let's close this. And to do that, I just like to kind of take the yarn, feed it through there, and then just simply whip stitch it closed. The thing you just want to make sure is that your the bottoms of your squares are straight across. Once you're happy with that, go ahead and tie that off, and we'll continue on with round 9. For round 9, we are going to single crochet all the way around the plushie. So we're just going to call it 1. And 26. Okay, so this is what we should look like. The little blue pants. Okay, we are now on round 10, and this is where we're going to be changing to our light blue. And if for some reason your tension is off, then go ahead and single crochet your way back to the middle of the plushie. I am still there, so I think I'm good. But we are going to go ahead and switch to light blue. So before you complete that last stitch is where you want to go ahead and change to the blue, the light blue. And for the round 10, we are just going to be single crocheting all the way around. So 26 is what we should have. 1, once you get to the end, go ahead and tie those 2 blues together to hold them in place. And now we're ready for round 11. Okay, for rounds 11 through 15, we are just going to be single crocheting all the way around for 5 rounds. So I'm going to do this part off camera, but feel free to pause the video and come back when you've completed round number 15. I finished round 15, and what I'd like you to do is add a couple extra single crochets to get your work back to the center of the plushie. I had to add 2 to mine because now in row 16 we are going to change our yarn to the light green. But again, I want you at the center of the back of the plushie. This is all the green I have left. I'm hoping that it is enough. Playing a little yarn chicken. I'm pretty sure it is, but we'll see. So let's change to green, light green that is. Okay, and for the light green, this is round 16, and from round 16 to 20, so 5 rounds of light green. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 rounds of light green. So I'm going to go ahead and start those. After you've completed your first round of green, go ahead and tie that light green to the blue just to secure it in place. I like to do a double knot here. Okay. And then continue on with round 17, 18, 19, and 20. Again, feel free to pause the video and meet me back here at when you've completed round 20. Okay, before you get too much further, you want to stuff your plushie, and ideally you probably should have started stuffing sooner. But as I was sitting here, my husband had an idea for stuffing. And so I went ahead and I stuffed this leg with just stuffing, but he suggested using foam. So I just happened to find some foam laying around, and he thought it would be a good idea to stuff the leg in with the foam to help it keep its shape. So definitely not a must, but we're going to see the difference that it would make. And like I said, this would have been a lot easier if I would have done it sooner, but that's okay. So I just cut a piece of foam, the dimensions of the leg, and I think it might be kind of genius. So this is foam, this is stuffing. I do think I like the foam. Okay, we're gonna do foam. See, look down in there, it's foam. And then okay, let's do the other side with foam, this other piece of foam that I have. All right, and then we'll go ahead and stuff the rest with just polyfill. Let's see what that does. Yeah, so just his legs are foam. It's definitely not as like stiff, because I don't have like memory foam, but I do think it definitely looks more square. See that? Okay, well, we're just gonna go with it. So now we are going to go ahead and change to dark green for our final couple rounds. And again, make sure you're at the center back of your plushie to start this last color change. Okay, now what we're going to do for round 21 is we are going to be putting in a round of single crochets, but in each of the corners we're going to be putting a half double crochet. Okay, and so what I want to determine this, we're gonna just kind of square off our plushie, and using this corner, using the corner of the legs as your guide, you're gonna kind of just like flatten the guy out, and wherever that is, come up and put a stitch marker, okay? And then I think it's usually 4 stitches over, 1, 2, 3, 4, and that should be the next one. But again, you could just use the bottom corner and just come straight up from it. And it should be like, there should be 3 in between them. One, two, 3. One, two, 3. And then you do the same thing over here. Oh, I need one more stitch marker. You can go ahead and take one of the middle ones out. Then you go 1, 2, 3, and it should be this one. Like that one needs to be over. Again, this is just, there's not a good way to do this because everybody's tension is different, and so it's just easiest to line up the corners. I kind of feel like that one's off. Oh, maybe not. I think it's just my stuffing. So just flatten it out. And then you should be good. So you want to look like something like that. Now when you go to put your round of dark green in each of those stitch markers, you're going to put a half double crochet. So you're going to single crochet to the stitch marker, and then in that corner marked stitch, you're going to put a half double. And then you should put, there should be 3 in between each. 1, 2, 3, and then half double. And then we're going to single crochet over to the other one. And then we're going to put a half double into that stitch where the stitch marker is. 1, 2, I think that one's off. 3. There should be 3 stitches in between. We'll see what that looks like. It's just, crochet is never perfect. Just saying. Okay. So that should be good. Now let's go ahead and tie those together to hold them. And we've got our, so that's round 21. Again, just to reiterate, it's just a matter of lining up these corners so that so it looks like he's square. Like, that's really the best way I can explain it. Now, if you want to be extra, and my husband suggested maybe putting a piece of foam up here at the top to help him be squared off. I think that's a little bit too wide. I just found some old foam in my craft supplies. So if you put a piece of foam at the very top of him, it'll help him hold his square shape. Again, tip courtesy of my husband. Okay, I think I like that. Okay. So he's got foam in his legs, and then he has a little piece of foam in his head. That kind of helps define where the corners are. And if you don't have foam, it's okay. It's not a big deal. I made all of these without foam. Okay, for round 22, we are going to be working in the back loops. So again, this could be a little bit tricky, especially with that foam in there, but just hang with me. We can do this. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna be single crocheting all the way around in the back loops, but we're gonna decrease the back loops in the corners, okay? So single crochet in the back loops until you get to the first corner. Everybody's tension is going to be a little bit different, and I know your corner placement is going to be a little bit different, but single crochet in the back loops until you get to the first marked half double, okay? And then when you get to that stitch, go ahead and decrease that half double with the stitch behind it. So you're going to decrease that stitch and then put in 2 single crochets, into the back, put in 2 single crochets, and then decrease the next corner. So you're going to take that half double, the back loop of that half double. I'm going to take that out for now, and decrease it with the next stitch. Okay. And now we're going to single crochet in the back loops until we get to the next corner. And now when we're at the stitch right before the single crochet or the half double, let's decrease that stitch with the corner. Okay. And then we're gonna back loop for 2, and then we're gonna decrease again. And then back loops until you get back to where you started. Okay, and this is what you should be looking like. Okay, now let's go ahead and put our foam back in there, or you can finish stuffing this out. I think the foam kind of will hold its shape a little better. So for round 23, we're going to single crochet decrease all the way around. Single crochet decrease. For round 23, we have single crochet decreased. For our final round 24 is decreasing all the way around. And then just go ahead, you're gonna have probably 1 stitch left. We're just gonna fasten it off. And go ahead and leave a long tail. Okay, so now we just need to close this up. We can remove all of these stitch markers. This is ready to be closed up. This one is definitely not stuffed as tight as this one. I think I'm gonna stuff it a little more. It doesn't feel as stuffed as that one. I don't know if I can add more stuffing after I'm this far into it. I don't think I can. Okay, so this is just to show you that sometimes things just don't go as planned. I didn't stuff this enough when I was making it before I decided I was gonna put this at the top. So I needed to pull that out and add some more stuffing. And ideally I should have done this before I closed it up, but I did not. So at this point you could stuff it. And if you're not using foam, make sure that you like really put stuffing into the corners of the plushie to give it the, to push out the corners so it looks squared off, okay? I'm showing you this option before I put in the foam, because you can still get the squared look without foam, is what I'm trying to say. And then once you close this off, then we're gonna just push it down like that and pull it through the body. Okay, I'm gonna attempt to put this foam at the top and see if I like it. All right, I was able to get that foam back in there. I'm just gonna leave it for this one because I put foam in the legs, so it'll have foam at the very top and foam in the legs. But this is one without any foam anywhere. So I have two of the same yarn, one with foam, one without. So I have two different options here. And then to close up this hole, either with foam or without, you're just gonna go in the back loops. Or no, the front loops, sorry. Front loops, alternating to close up the hole. And tie it off. And then it'll stick up like that. And what I like to do is, again, just kind of flatten it out. And then, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to go through that foam. Oh yeah, I can. Then you just pull it down through the body and then just give it a tug so that it's flat. And then kind of adjust it. I'll tell you, I'm not sure I like the foam at the top, to be honest now. I think I was able to do better with just plushy material. I mean, because look, I don't know. Where is my corner for that? Okay, so here is the Minecraft zombie ready for arms. I feel like foam inside is definitely, it kind of keeps its structure a little bit, but not 100% necessary. I do like it in the legs though. Okay, we are down to our last two steps, which is going to be sewing on the arms and doing the eyes. To sew on the arms, we're just going to be threading our needle, and where the color changes, you want to face that towards the plushie so you can't see it. And my daughters told me that the zombie arms are always out straight, so I like to line it up at the top of the shirt and then just start sewing it on. And I just like to go along the edge of the back of the arm, and I just hold it in place with my thumb like that. And then I'll come on this side and do the same thing, just attaching it underneath a couple of stitches. But again, to make sure his arms are like out straight. And just sew them right on there. And when you get them on, go ahead and tie it off. like to do is take the yarn tail and bring it to the back of the body to tie it off with the other arm. All right, so there's the first arm. Now we'll sew on the other one. Again, find where your color changes, put it against the body, line it up on the side. Where the green meets the blue, basically. Make it even with the other one. Hold it with your thumb. And then sew it on. And then I always do like to do a few stitches underneath. Kind of hold it. And then on the base of the arm. Then go ahead and tie a knot. I think I'm going to put one more stitch right here. And then go ahead and take the yarn tail, meet it up with this other one. And tie these together. All right, now we have our little zombies' arms are on, and now we just need to give them some eyes. Last step is going to be to add the little zombie eyes. I like to use just cotton yarn. This is Hobby Lobby's. I love this cotton. And I like to double up the yarn when I thread the needle, just because you have to make less passes. So and thread your yarn needle. I like to go through the top of the head, and then you're going to be using this middle row of green to place your eyes. And I kind of just like to go in the middle, off to the right a little bit, kind of in line with the pants, like that. And then leave a tail right here that you can tie off with. And then kind of just judge how big you want the eyes, and then go in. And then you make 2 passes. There's 1, 2 passes, and then go to the other side and just kind of eyeball it up from this side of the pants, and then over, I guess, just so it kind of matches the other one. I just eyeball it, and you make 2 passes. And then once you go and you meet up with this one, there's a fly, stupid fly. And then have to cut your yarn because the way it's threaded. And then you just adjust the eyes. If you like the way they look, which I think they're good, then you just tie these together. Once they're secured, then you can go back and adjust the eyes if you want. Snip that off, tuck those back into the plushie, and then I like to do one final like adjustment of the zombie eyes. And it's done. So the little zombie guy is complete. If you have any questions at all, feel free to send me a message or drop it in the comments. Just as a side note, the foam in the top of the head and in the legs is completely optional. I did this one with just polyfill. It does give it a little bit more of a square look, I will say. And if I had memory foam, I think I might like it a little bit more, but it is an option to help get the square look. It maybe even something that I try is to put a piece of foam throughout the whole thing. That might be something that I try in the future with, you know, when I make this again. There will be a PDF version of this pattern available on my website. Check the description box for a link. But yeah, if you have any questions at all, feel free to drop it in the comments or send me an email. And I hope you had fun making this little zombie guy. But that's going to do it for today's video. Hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any of my future videos. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye! Crochet hook. This is not the right size that I use for this. You can find that first. In round 3, we're going to be going, oh my gosh, Holly, can you lay down? Making sure, what you want to do is, oh my god, the dogs.